I always put 6 inches of gravel at the bottom of my holes because you need proper drainage. But do you? Let's find out. All right, so here's my plan. To appease all the people, the engineers, everybody. My plan is to take this bucket, cut it off so that we have our 6 inches of gravel, but also have a water barrier so that if any water is soaking all the way through down, it will be trapped in the bucket. And when we excavate this thing out after pouring all of our concrete, we'll be able to see how much water is making it into the bucket to see if the gravel is actually necessary. Jiggle saw for the win. And so you will see we have that much gravel. That is also a lot of area to catch water in. So luckily our 12-inch hole fits a 5-gallon bucket pretty well. Yep, that's good. We'll put our post right on top of that. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let that concrete fill in around where our diameter of our hole is just a little bit bigger because we wanna try and direct all that stuff right into that bucket. I think it should be fairly obvious when we're done here whether or not that this gravel is doing anything. I just don't know how much water is actually making it down there. I don't know that, and so I figure if I don't know that, you don't know that, and I kinda wanna know. This is gonna be an interesting test. This ground is really pretty dry. Like there is not a whole lot of moisture in it. It's pretty crumbly. Does not wanna stick together. And that's like all the way down in there. So I'm kind of excited about this one. In an effort to trap as much water as possible, I'm gonna put this inside of a bag so that I can trap any water all the way to the edges of the concrete in the hole. I'm really trying to make sure we do this properly. I feel really good about this, I do. I feel very sciencey. I feel like if any water makes it down there, we're gonna capture about as much of it as possible. And like if we drain that thing and there's even a little bit in the bottom of the bag or the bucket, we're gonna say, okay, well that actually does potentially provide some drainage. Now here's the other catch, is if it's making it all the way down there and then it gets to the gravel, it still has to drain through the soil that's down below there. So this still isn't quite computing with me. There's still clay under there theoretically. We just made a temporary resting spot. The posts are rotting off not below the ground, not in the ground, but right at the ground. Not only do you have to have the fungi and the moisture, but you actually have to have air, and there's no air down there for things to feed on and for microorganisms to decay, which is why stumps in the ground take so incredibly long to rot. And that's why most posts rot off right at ground or maybe just below ground. Let's say it did make it all the way down there. Is that where the post is gonna rot? No, because it's not an oxygen-rich environment. We are oxygen-starved, and that is not where your post is gonna rot and fail, is at the bottom. So I still don't understand the philosophy, but this is about finding out whether or not the water actually gets down there, and then we can debate the validity of actually putting rock in the bottom of the hole if it makes it all the way down there. Based on my very keen observations from the last time, we need about about that much water. You know what I need right now is I need Victor's bucket with a little scoop and a little block. You remember that from that video right over here? That's a pretty nifty weight to pour concrete. All right. Yeah, that's it. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna cover this thing up with dirt like we would if it was a normal fence. So we have now been to the Knick Knack Patty Wax store, and we've got ourselves some stuff that should allow us to extend our water carrying device down that way to that post. We're treating this like it's a tree. We're trying to make it grow roots, because if we're putting this wood in the ground, we definitely want it to have roots. Yeah, it's like a little tree ring. We have a nice depression here. This should collect water like crazy. 8 gallons an hour, that's a lot of water for right here. So we can all agree that that's a tremendous amount of water going on. If it's going to soak through and get to our gravel down below, we'll know it. And we've got it set to run for an hour a day for the next 4 days. It's just gonna do that, and hopefully it'll puddle up. Maybe it puddles up, but well, we should get plenty of water down there. Now all we have to do is wait. That's it, just wait. So it's now been 6 days. We set this post Thursday and now it's Wednesday. We actually waited a couple extra days. It's been watering for 6 days for an hour a day, meaning that we put 8 gallons a day right on this post. And you can see around us, it stayed concentrated just like we wanted it to. It didn't flow out over here, and it should have gone straight down in. Here again to help us is our 20-year veteran, Poverty John, and he will be digging this up. You ready for this? All right. There is definitely an incredible amount of moisture here. This is mud. This is the bottom of the hole, and we absolutely have mud. Like this is nasty. We didn't have that mud in the holes that we did in last week's video, where we retested the dry pack method with the water added. So we definitely got a lot more water right here. It'd be interesting to see what we have in that bucket. Not an ordinary, average, everyday situation that we're gonna have in Wyoming. So we know that our drip irrigation system worked very, very well. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see all that water draining out of that bag. The bucket is still attached, so that's good. So yeah, actually water did make it all the way down into that bucket. I am surprised. I'm surprised by this. I don't know how it got there, but it's there. It is absolutely 100% in the bucket. So what we can say about that is the water did go all the way down and settle in that bucket, but that does not answer the full question, I don't think. Most specs that we've seen say that you need to put 6 inches or 4 inches or whatever of gravel in the bottom. It's usually about that much. Once it gets down there, I'm not sure where it's going from there. So if you get a really big event and you saturate your soil, where is it going to go from there? There's a lot of specs that will actually call for us to encase the entire post in concrete, in which case the moisture goes there and stays there. And that's one of the biggest things we've said, is that you have that moisture constantly around your post and use concrete, especially wood posts, and that's just holding that moisture right there inside your post, which is why they rot off faster, especially right up about here. I'm not sure if you're an engineer, if you can tell me why you think that it matters that we put this gravel in the bottom when there's nowhere for it to drain past that if we still have a heavy clay soil. I would suspect that had we not put this bucket here to trap that water, it would have just continued to drain down to the water table and would not have stopped at all. So having that drainage there, I'm not sure what we're accomplishing by doing that, although we did prove that the water does travel down the post. Here's another thing to consider is the type of ground you're in. We have a very heavy clay on the top, but then we have a really good percolating soil underneath. And so having this gravel there is really not adding any benefit either, because this ground will absolutely drain very, very well. Completely saturated. It was also surprisingly easy to bust this concrete. I didn't even do any overhand swings and busted this concrete. And this was wet set as well. I have to say, my professional opinion is Sakrete concrete, well, they may say it's 3,000 PSI. We mixed this almost exactly the way they said, with it about as stiff as we could get it. It's just not strong concrete at all, ever. You will always get better concrete out of a truck than you ever will out of a bag. You can take that to the bank. That's a 6-day cure. This is the soil that we have underneath that clay soil, and it is nothing but sand and gravel. This is about as good a drainage soil as you can get, and we were already at that before we added that bucket. So adding the gravel in this particular soil scenario does not really help. The other thing I'm going to tell you is that we have groundwater issues, and a lot of places have groundwater issues. If you have areas where you've got lots and lots of groundwater, like we do in all of Florida, or a lot of other areas in the country where it has heavy saturation all the time down below the surface, then I don't know where we think that water is going to go. It's going to get to the water table, and if we're already in the water table with the post, it's got nowhere to go, even if we do add that gravel. I'm thinking a scenario like Florida. We get a ton of rain, but it's all sandy ground and it's draining right through there. The gravel is doing nothing in those scenarios to help drain that water away from the post at all. Putting that just as a carte blanche in a spec is a really silly thing to do, and is probably silly in just about every scenario I can think of. If you can think of a scenario where you think this would be beneficial, definitely let us know down below, because I personally can't see one. You see all that water down there? This isn't all attributed straight to my drip system. This is the fact that we just have groundwater. That's something else that has not been taken into account when they carte blanche put that spec in there that says you need to put 6 inches of gravel, or the Home Depot do-it-yourself book, or wherever they're coming up with this stuff that is stuck with specs forever and ever. And that's what we're here to try and do, is we're here to try and educate the inspectors and the engineers that spec these silly things, just as much as we're trying to educate you, the homeowner or the fence professional. If you want to use gravel, use gravel. Take the extra time to use gravel. But for me, we'll be going gravel free. I'm Mark with SWI in Wyoming. We are Wyoming's fence company, and I hope you have learned something and have a great day.